Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining another episode of Startup Sales. Today, we're going to be speaking with Eric Nadeau. His company has 29 SDRs, and they're working about almost 95% outbound, and they're ramping up to hire an additional 12 SDRs. He's going to share with us how to find prospects for outbound, what is a good SDR to AE ratio, what to look for when hiring an SDR, and how to train them, and also how to build and keep a good sales culture. And join us next week when we speak to Benjamin Dennehy, the world's most hated sales trainer. Yes, you heard that right. World's most hated sales trainer. He's going to be speaking about the root cause of all the problems in your sales pipeline.
Startup Sales is a podcast about what it's really like to get a business off the ground. We talk with founders, CEOs, and sales VPs from the high-tech market. You'll learn how to build and scale a sales team. You'll also hear about the growth challenges and tough decisions from others who have had both successes and failures. And now, your host of the Startup Sales Podcast, Adam Springer.
Eric, thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Adam. Pretty excited to do this with you.
So let's start with a quick background about yourself and your experience.
Okay, all right. Let's see, where do I begin? Coming out of school, people always said to me, hey, you seem somewhat charismatic. You seem like you can get along pretty well with people. So, why don't you go out and try selling some stuff? And I've always admired how lucrative sales can be, and the human element of actually communicating with people and making a sale and closing a deal, and how hard you work is, what potentially you can get out of it. But over the years, I've learned that there's a few more elements that go into it than that, and it's all about finding the right opportunity and a product that you believe in that's really going to make or break your success. So for me, I started out selling a few things that maybe I didn't feel as connected to as a product like I'm selling today. But I'm happy that I found tech sales, an honest way to approach sales and something that really can help companies and individuals within those companies.
Absolutely. I think it's what you said about having something that you could stand behind is key for success for a salesperson.
Yeah, 100%.
Great. So why don't you tell me what the elevator pitch for OpsGenie?
Okay, sure. So what OpsGenie does, they're a modern incident management platform to help operate always-on services. And we really feel like we're empowering dev and ops teams to plan for service disruptions and stay in control when something might go wrong within the IT department. Great.
Okay. So it kind of is an alerting mechanism on a very high level, alerting mechanism. So if something goes wrong on your structure, that it will alert you guys.
Right. Absolutely.
Interesting. Okay. So your SDR team,
Yep.
Are you guys primarily focused on inbound or outbound?
Good question. And we recently brought on a new VP of marketing. I'm super excited for him to ramp things up. But the team right now, I would say, is probably 95% outbound. So we're doing a lot of calls, a lot of cold emails. And, that brings a few challenges. But as marketing continues to ramp up, the company continues to grow, we get a little more brand recognition out there, and that all of that stuff is starting to happen. We're seeing the benefits of it. Maybe that percentage might switch a little bit.
Yeah, that's interesting. So if it's 95% outbound, are you reporting to sales or reporting to marketing?
Reporting to sales.
Okay, interesting. And will that change or have an effect when inbound starts coming in?
For myself, I consider myself a sales guy, and the organizations where I reported up through sales, I found us to be the most successful because it adds an element of checks and balances of what the marketing team is sending over to. We're kind of verifying the quality of all that and giving feedback to the teams, to the marketing team, so maybe they can make some tweaks from their ends. So I don't foresee that changing anytime soon.
Interesting. Okay, so let's cover inbound real quick, as it's only about 5% now.
Sure.
Do you have any statistics as to what the average amount of calls or messages are before able to send it off to sales?
In terms of how many touches that we're putting into a prospect?
Exactly.
That is a difficult stat. Now, we do use some industry best practices where we have a series of emails and phone calls that go out over about a 10-day period of time. And I believe it's about 6 emails and 5 or 6 calls. But if you feel like you really have the right person and you get into that conversation, he has a really good title, I definitely encourage the team to do more than that and then step outside of the emails that we have provided them with and write something very tailored and personalized to get their attention a little better. So I think as a broad stroke, about 10 days, maybe 10 to 12 touches. But beyond that, we'll get more customized with the right individual.
Interesting. Okay, and what tools are you using to keep track of those touches?
So the tool that we're using here is called Outreach, and we're actually using HubSpot as our CRM, and we had to build out an API integration with Outreach. So all of their calls, all their emails are going out through that particular tool.
Interesting. And is it the same tool that you're using for Outbound?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes. So they're both. I've been talking about Outbound this whole time. Hopefully that's okay. That's pretty much my world. But when we do get inbound leads, we flow them through the same type of tools. It's just a slightly different series of emails and maybe messaging.
Okay. All right. So the Outbound campaign is a 10-day campaign.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Now, have you ever gotten bad responses from that, saying like, "Hey, you guys are too aggressive on, I don't know you. Why are you emailing me 6 emails within 10 days?"
Yeah, of course, those are going to come up. And when you think about the thousands of different people that we're reaching out to, they're coming from all kinds of different backgrounds. Sometimes you're catching somebody on a bad day, and they're looking to take it out on somebody. So I don't take that type of response personally, and I encourage my team to do the same. And that's what I really chalk it up to, because for the most part, if I'm receiving a cold email and it's something I am interested in, I'm almost expecting them to reach out 2 or 3 more times before, I need to know that I got to get back to them.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. What is your average success rate with these?
In terms of booking a meeting to how many calls we're putting in, or
exactly?
That varies widely between each individual, each SDR. But if we're talking number of dials to actually a good conversation with the right individual that has a few problems we can help them with, I'd have to say it's up around 150 calls before we have a good call like that.
Interesting. And how many calls are your team doing a day?
So on any given day, we have a benchmark of about 100 dials. Now, if they're having some good conversations and they're booking some meetings, they're doing a couple follow-up calls, I'm okay with them doing a little less than 100. But with Outreach, what I've seen is they can easily do 150. Sometimes they hit 200 dials in a day. So 100 is what I give you for an answer, but a lot of people are doing more than that. With that being said, we have a few people that are very strong on the phone, have really good conversations, are good at building rapport, and then we have and then we have other people that are really good with LinkedIn messaging and connecting with people that way. So I encourage them to play to their strong suits, their strong where they're talented. So some people might lean to doing more dials. Some people might kind of stay in the average area.
So if that's the case, I strongly believe the same as you do, is the salesperson should go where they're strong with. It should be natural for them.
Right.
But the problem with that is how do you scale that?
Right. So that's a good question. And when it comes to scaling what you're going to put in as metrics to judge the team by, that's when an element of results comes into play. So, hey, if somebody's doing 90 dials on average, yeah, that's a little below average. However, if you're hitting your weekly meeting goal, if you're hitting your monthly opportunity goal, so an actual meeting that results in somebody that's going to be sold to by the sales team, I'm okay with that. And that's where the one-on-one feedback comes in, and the individual coaching comes in.
Yeah. At what point in their stage in the company do you allow them to start to go off course and do their own thing?
That's a good question. And as we're growing so rapidly here at OpsGenie, this is something that I'm seeing starting to emerge a little quicker than I have in the past. These guys are so motivated to come in here, do a good job, work hard, that they're really dedicating themselves to the training. They're really trying to improve on their own. So I would say within 3 months, I can start giving people some leeway to really find what they're good at and play to those strengths. So I think that varies on a company-to-company basis, though.
Yeah. Okay. So about 3 months in your experience for now.
About 3 months for this particular organization. Yeah.
Okay. And how are you determining who to target in your outbound?
So we're really looking for keywords within either their LinkedIn profiles. For us, it's around monitoring, IT, always on, 24/7 services, cloud, things around those particular key terms. And then, of course, looking at titles, doing keyword search around titles with the IT department, system engineers, network engineers, IT directors, and all the way up to maybe VP of IT, CIOs, things like that. So anybody that works in the IT department is really a sweet spot for us. And with the larger organizations, they'll actually have titles around incident response or manager of IT incidents or something like that.
Yeah, make it really easy for you to target them.
Yeah, those ones are pretty good if we can get them on the hook.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the ratio of SDRs to account executives?
Yeah, that's another good question too. So we actually have a really big SDR team as we're trying to build pipeline and ramp up companies that we can sell into. So right now, it's basically 2 SDRs to 1 account executive. And in the past, I've actually seen that completely opposite. But because we're having such a focus on outbound, this is really where we're investing a lot of money is in our outbound strategy with the SDR team.
Interesting. And 2 SDRs that are ramped up are able to keep an account executive busy.
Well, the idea is to keep them busier than they should be, at this point.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're looking to hire somebody for your SDR team,
yep.
What kind of skills are you looking for?
So I've hired a lot of SDRs over the years, and we're located right in downtown Boston with OpsGenie. So it's extremely competitive out here in terms of getting SDRs. And I'm amazed that if I'm interviewing an SDR, he probably has 3 or 4 other opportunities on the table at any given time, if they're any good, of course. So what I really look for, and I've changed this over the years as I've interviewed. I used to look for somebody that, very charismatic and able to build relationships quickly. And I still think that's great. And I do look for people with good personalities. They have to have a strong desire to get into sales, because especially in the SDR position, it's such a roller coaster. You're going to have a couple weeks where you're clicking, you're talking to people, and things are going great. And then you're going to have other weeks where you're not talking to anybody. So are you able to kind of dedicate yourself to coming in, performing, doing what you need to do, even when things aren't going well? So I look for somebody now that has a proven level of discipline. And this is something that I've recently kind of come up with as I'm working with our talent team here to describe, what kind of candidates I want to talk to. Mm-hmm. So that shows up in a lot of different shapes and forms, because especially with SDRs, it's not like I can look at 5 years of SDR experience and then say, oh, hey, this guy's going to be good. He's hit his targets. I really have to find somebody that is either coming straight out of school or they've had another sales gig, like maybe, I have, maybe you have in the past as well, that wasn't that great, and they know they can do better. They know they're working and not making what they should. So a lot of people with sports backgrounds, and I hesitate when I say that because I really don't like that aggressive, willing to rip down the doors, to do, step on whoever he needs to get ahead. I like to have a nice team that works very well together, very collaborative. And again, getting back to that honesty piece, I want people that are going to be honest and upfront and actually care about the individuals that we're talking to. So the sports background from a discipline level, just coming in, those guys are used to sticking to a good schedule, balancing school, balancing sports, and building good habits for the most part. It can also come through with people that maybe work their way through school, if they're waiters or hosts or maybe working at a call center, just kind of building up those reps of being in front of people. That's something I like to see. Or if they really did good academically and then they kind of dedicated themselves to that, maybe they were part of programs within their school that they had to apply themselves to. So I really sum it up into, hey, can you show me that you've had some type of accomplishments in your life where you had to apply yourself and show some discipline to get those things done?
It's interesting. Out of all the people I've interviewed, I haven't heard people go into that kind of level where you're looking for, if it's a new student or somebody that doesn't have the work history,
right, that
has had these challenges before, and actually pinpointing what those challenges would be.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, one of the things you also said was a desire to get into sales.
Right.
Because, as you said, it has its ups and it has its downs. But without actually ever experiencing that, somebody doesn't know what that actually means.
Yes, that's an interesting way to put it. We all kind of aspire to be certain things in life, right? And if you ask the 13-year-old Eric, hey, did you want a career in sales, and did you want to run sales development teams? I'm not sure that's the first thing he would have said, and I think that's the case for most people. But some people have parents that have been in sales, maybe been in tech sales or some other type of financial sales, and they say, hey, I like that lifestyle that brings. I like the skill, right? The skill to communicate with people. I think that's something that I should really hone in on, and this will benefit me in more ways than just my career. So I do believe that people can get a sense of, hey, I want to be a sales guy at some point.
Yeah. Interesting.
Just like becoming a doctor or a lawyer, you don't need to experience being a lawyer to say, hey, I want to get into that line of work.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of have an idea of what it would be, what it would play out in your head.
Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't work out.
Well, I mean, it could work out even if they know what the job is, and it could still not work out.
That's true.
So it's a risk you always run.
Yep.
So when you're looking at somebody, do you prefer that person with experience, or do you prefer that new person that has the desire?
Okay. Yeah, that's another tough one, because when I'm looking at somebody's resume, and let's say maybe they're an SDR at 2 other startups, and they were promised maybe promotions and growth slowed. So themselves know that didn't happen. They've hit their quotas and they've really applied themselves, know the job, know the tools, take good notes. On paper, that person, that individual looks fantastic. It's almost like a no-brainer. I should go with that person. But there's a few things that potentially could happen. They might be a little burnt out by their past experiences and not be giving it that all as somebody might coming out of school. They might just be going through the motions and think, hey, geez, I already should have been out of this group. I can't believe I got to, apply myself and work as hard as I do every day. So if I'm being honest with you, I would probably prefer the guy coming out of school with some of those characteristics that I was telling you about, that's really looking for a shot and is going to take advice and do some self-study, learn the product, and really apply himself fully to this role.
Absolutely. That made a lot of sense.
Cool.
All right. So let's say you hire that person. How do you train them? What's your training process look like?
So we do 2 weeks of formal classroom style training with a lot of PowerPoints. We'll have sales engineers come in, talk about technology, talk about the industry, talk about our products, some use cases on where we fit. And then I come in, and I really think I've kind of honed this skill over the years, because this is something that, I was tasked to do way back when I was at Unitrends, is train a lot of people, hire them up. So I've just continued to hone that skill. So I'll come in, I'll do a lot of role plays around building rapport, sounding different than other people on the phone. I'll give them a script, but and they can use my words. They're going to be half decent if they go out and use my words and stumble into some meetings. But once they understand kind of the concepts and start applying their own personality, that's when they're going to be good. So we'll do a lot of role plays on my end. And to be honest, that first 2 weeks is pretty intense. So they kind of walk out of there feeling like they drank from a fire hose a little bit. So then beyond that, it's a lot of listening to calls, listening to how they're delivering, the pitch on what Opportunity does and how it might help their company, and doing some one-on-one coaching. So to kind of have that type of rapport with the team, right, where they're going to trust you and they don't feel like you're being too invasive, I do work on that as well to really make sure that these individuals feel like I'm here for their success, and I want to see them do as good as they can.
Okay, makes sense.
Did I answer your question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
When you're doing the role playing,
Yep.
Are you recording that and having them listen to it or watch it?
So that's something I've been thinking of, and it's something I have done in the past, because that is very effective. With the role plays, what I'm currently doing is kind of writing out the steps of the role play. How good did we do building rapport? How good did we do setting expectations? Did we get a good pitch of what Opportunity does, how it might help them? Then did we have a real good conversation around, what problems they're having, how long it's been going on, things of that nature? Then a close, and then some next steps, right? So that's the way I'll kind of break it down. We'll go around and we'll do that role play. And then after we do it, I'll ask them, hey, is there one thing you think you could have done a little better? And first I'll set the stage with the team, like, hey, this may be very much a no judgment zone. We're all going to make mistakes. This is for us to learn. And then we'll offer some feedback on, hey, maybe you should have brought up this feature, or hey, maybe you should have asked this question here. Or when you kind of went on a little too long, I think you might have lost interest. So that's the dynamic that I'm set up now. But the recording the role play, I think, would be very beneficial too.
Yeah. All right. And when you're given the feedback in these sessions,
yeah,
this is always a tough one, because there's always so much feedback to give.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line in, like, saying, okay, like I've given enough, and there's only so much somebody could take in at once?
So that's very true. And that's something that sometimes is a little difficult to read. But it's important that we do give direct feedback on how people can help. And when you're sitting in a group setting, not only is it to remember the material that we're role playing out, it's almost a public speaking experience too, which is very difficult for people. So I try to be aware of, this is a stressful situation. It's necessary to learn what we need to learn to be effective. And I am known to be a little direct with my feedback, but I'll say, hey, listen, you did a great job, and this is difficult for anybody, but here are a few areas that you can improve. But don't take that feedback personally. And I'm sure, next time we do it, we're going to see a lot of better results.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So now we've got somebody hired. We've trained him.
Yep.
What kind of tools are you using in the day-to-day operation? besides outreach?
Yep. So besides outreach, we're using discover.org, and that is largely where we are getting the companies that we're going to target. And the way the team is broken up, it's not geographically, where it's account-based selling. So we'll assign each SDR 100, 200 accounts. And we've also broken the team up in SMB, mid-market, and enterprise companies. So when you first start, you're probably going to start in the SMB area, and we'll assign you a few hundred accounts. And you're going to use Discover.org to identify the right people. Beyond Discover.org, you are going to use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Again, there's my Boston accent coming out. Sales Navigator to maybe identify some more people with the right titles, right skill set that we want to talk to. And then we're going to load all those people up in outreach and begin our series of emails and phone calls.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you said you're doing account-based marketing. Explain that a little bit more.
So we're really taking it upon ourselves as a leadership team and an ops team to try and provide them with what we think would be a good fit of companies that they can sell into, to kind of remove that element of the prospecting phase. Hey, is this a company that I might be able to sell into? Is it in the right vertical? Does it have the right amount of people? So we really feel like that's something that we can take on our end, provide them the company, and then it's up to them to find the right individuals within that company to speak with, and then try to sell to.
Interesting. And how are you finding that you're going to have some challenges with that as it scales up?
So we are beginning to see some challenges with doing that as it scales, in terms of there's so many subsidiaries of bigger companies that sometimes that's hard to vet out. But we're still in a good place now where it's working for us. Will we eventually maybe go to an east-west, and I'm talking North America, breakup to give them some fences to work within? Sure, maybe. Or maybe 4 quadrants, but that's the beauty of being in a startup. We can kind of change it as we go, but that's the strategy we've been working with.
Yeah. How many SDR guys do you guys have now?
Right now, I have 29.
Wow. And
it's myself, another manager, and I have a couple team leads. And I'm actually gearing up to bring on board another 12 in the next couple of months.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Okay. Good. All right. So once one of the SDR guys has reached out to somebody, has somebody interested, how is the handoff taken care of?
Okay. So once they find somebody that has a few problems that we're able to help them with, and they're interested to learn more in Ops Genie, the SDR is going to take as many notes as they can, be as thorough as they can during that phone call. And then we're going to make a suggestion to them that, hey, I'd like you to spend maybe 20 minutes with one of our account executives. You can really dive a little bit deeper into the technology, how we're able to help your company, maybe do some ballpark pricing and see if we might be a fit. We get the buy-in for that. We send off a calendar invite. Then we'll, at the end, we'll say, hey, is there anything that might come up between now and that next call? If there is, feel free to reach out. We can reschedule. Try to reduce people not showing a little bit. Once the calendar invite's sent out, that shows up on the account executive's calendar, also on the prospect's calendar and the SDR's calendar. And then we do a few moves in our CRM. The AE will see that. They might ask the SDR a little bit of background for the call. I think that's good for both the SDR and the AE. And then hopefully they show up.
If a lead gets handed over to an AE and the AE finds that it's not ripe or it's not ready, what do? Do they just send it back to SDR, or how does that work?
So depending on the situation, the AE may continue to work that particular individual if it's something to do with timing, and maybe the timing isn't right. But by and large, if either the individual doesn't show or it's so far out it doesn't make sense for the AE to continue reaching out, they will communicate back to the SDR, hey, I had that call, I appreciate you setting that up. It just seems like either the timing isn't right or financially doesn't make sense for that company. So I'm going to have to reject that call. And, that's something that you can continue to follow up on.
Okay. So let's take a different lead. You started talking about before that you're hiring another 12 or so more SDR team.
Yep.
So what are some of the biggest problems that you could see that are going to arise from scaling that many more people at once?
The biggest problem is really continue to keep the team dynamic. Right now we have a really good team that works really well with each other. And they've formed good relationships where if somebody has a question with a team this size, they need to be able to rely on the person next to them to help them, whether it's a question they don't quite know how to answer or getting through to an individual, sharing some ideas around messaging is important. So I need to be very careful to hire the right individuals that are going to kind of fit into what we have going on, fit into the culture, add to the culture, because the biggest fear of mine is one or two people that are a little negative, and that type of attitude can really throw off the team a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you building that team dynamic or that culture?
So we do a lot around company outings. Every Friday we have a pretty cool event. We call it Darts, and I'll award a dart to maybe the highest performing SDR that week. The sales team, the closers will come over. They'll award a dart to potentially somebody that closed a big deal or that's been working hard. Marketing actually will come over, present a little bit about what they're working on, and they might have a dart. So what they do with these darts is they'll throw them at a board with some that has balloons on there, and you pop a balloon. If you hit it, it's actually pretty bad when somebody misses the balloon and they kind of wasted their shot. But there'll be a number underneath that balloon, and then from that we'll give prizes. So the company really invests in doing fun things like that to bring us together. As we're growing, we're split across 3 offices right now, so the whole company will come into this one particular office where the SDRs are located. So you can see the executive presence, and you can bring everybody together. We'll also cater the lunch, and people can eat and talk and do a little fun prize game like that. So beyond that, we also have the open office concept where I'm sitting right on the floor with everybody. My manager, Kyle, he's also on the floor with everybody. The team leads are in the same. Our CFO sits right next to me. So we really try to be open. We try to get along with each other. We don't have to try to. We do get along with each other. So we really want to continue to foster that. But as we're feeling right now, we've already grown so quickly. We've had to move into some temporary space, and we're actually moving into a much larger office next month. That's going to bring us all together. We're really excited about that. So growing pains that we're working through, but doing those types of things I've really found to be something that's part of Opportunity's culture and something we're going to continue to do to keep the team bonded and working well together.
Well, I think it's really interesting that you bring all the management from all the different departments to show that the SDR, like, okay, here's how you're affecting other teams.
Oh yeah.
It's not just sales and it's not just money for the company. Okay, you're actually like having a direct involvement, and I think it really gets everybody involved in what they're doing and feeling like they're part of the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Okay. What are some of the biggest mistakes you've made as a sales leader? And what did you learn?
Wow, that's a tough question. Going back to the hiring, and maybe as I'm talking through this, I'll have another example come to mind. There have been a few times as you scale this quickly, and I'm hiring a lot of people within just the 6 months that I've been at this one particular organization. Once in a while, you'll hire somebody that wasn't the best fit, and it's difficult in an interview setting. People can really turn it on for an interview, just like doing a sales call. People can really turn it on during that time. So if you do a one-time interview where it is so competitive out here, it's very tempting, especially with people who have good experience. Hire them on the spot. You connect with them very well, and you hire them. And then you know what? They show up, and hey, this isn't really the experience that they want to be a part of, and they don't give it their all. And people notice that. Maybe they call it a few times, and people start saying, well, hey, if he's doing that, why can't I? So I have made that mistake a few times, and I'm not sure how preventable it is, but what I'm doing now is I will not hire somebody on one interview. It's going to take at least two, if not three. And sometimes I just meet them outside the outside of the office to have maybe a coffee or lunch to get them kind of know them on a personal level a little bit more before I'm willing to invest in that individual.
It's interesting. One of the things that I heard is that you guys you used to anyways, hire on the first interview.
It's very tempting because especially if we're working with recruiters, they'll give us some background on other offers that they have. And I've actually lost people that way too. I've had some great conversations with individuals, and they interview at another company the next day and they get hired on the spot. So it takes some effort to not kind of fall into that, especially when they come in and they give a really good job. They do a really good job. So that's something that myself as the director here, I try to really meet multiple times before we're going to give somebody an offer.
Yeah. Do you find that a lot of people are only looking for the dollar, or do you find that most people are looking for a home, a family?
That's a good question. And a lot of times people do come in, they say, hey, I want to be part of a company that I can be at for 5 or 10 years. But as we both know, in the tech industry, 5 to 10 years is like 30 to 50 years. 10 years ago, these companies grow, evolve, change, get bought, go public, whatever happens. These, especially fast-growing startups, life changes so quick. What I'd like people to say is, I'm looking for a career in sales. I want to be part of an organization that I can apply myself, be part of something, and I know if I work hard, I'm going to get promoted, and I'm going to have a background that then can propel me to either work in other organizations or continue on with Opsgenie. That would be great. But really a strong desire to get into sales and appreciating the craft is what I'd like them to say. The people really say to me, I only want the money. I hear that kind of rarely. So I guess that's my answer, as convoluted as it is.
I think it's pretty bad if somebody comes forward and straightly says, hey, I am only here for the money.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that would be a big red flag anyways. All right. So what are, we just talked about your biggest mistakes. What about your biggest accomplishments?
I always have a huge sense of accomplishment. I'd say one of my best accomplishments has recently happened. I hired about 19 people the last couple of months, and right out of the gate, these guys are so motivated. And I like to think trained up very well, that they're booking meetings first week on the phones, and I consider that. So I'll do that 2 week of formal classroom style training, and then the third week is really considered training. They're just hitting the phone and going through the reps and making the calls, learning how to enter notes in the CRM. We got people booking meetings, sometimes first day, second day, right in the ride from the first week, and everybody had booked a meeting within 2 weeks. So I really get a sense of pride from that, and I'm proud of these individuals, the effort that they're putting in, and the results that we're seeing right off the bat.
Great. Congratulations.
Thanks.
It's a good training program.
Thank you.
Great. Eric, is there a way for people to reach out to you if they wanted to get a hold of you?
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, if people want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, search for Eric Nadeau at Opsgenie. You can also send me an email at eric@opsgenie.com. I'd love to connect with anybody that's interested in this part of the business, and I like to think I have some good experience, can offer a few few tips and tricks, and always interested to meet new people.
Thanks for listening to Startup Sales with Adam Springer. Subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. To contact Adam about consulting service or speaking engagements, visit startupsalespodcast.com or email startupsalespodcast@gmail.com.
All right, Eric, let's end things off with 5 final questions.
Okay, sounds good.
What is your favorite sales or leadership book?
I'm a big fan of David Sandler's You Cannot Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar. Some people might consider it to be a little bit old at this point, but there is a really thorough body of work in that book that I think a lot of people can benefit from.
Is that a leadership book or more of a sales?
That's a sales tactic book, and it really gives a nice breakdown of building some rapport, setting expectations, identifying pain points, how do you ask good questions, good open-ended questions around those pain points, and it almost gets people to sell themselves a little bit. That's what I like about it. It's a little counterintuitive, so it's a good book on sales.
Very good. Do you have someone that you follow or read for sales or leadership advice?
So I'm more of a self-development junkie a little bit, and there is somebody not necessarily sales focused, but more of just an overall, how do you optimize yourself as an individual? And actually his website is called optimize.me, and his name is Brian Johnson, but he considers himself a philosopher. He's read all of the self-development books out there. I shouldn't say all of them, but he's read hundreds of self-development books. And then he distills them down into a 20-minute PDF or audio file, so you can kind of get the big ideas out of each one of those. So that's somebody that I listen to quite frequently.
Interesting. Is it a paid subscription?
So there's definitely free material that he puts out there, which is like a daily inspirational email that has a little video. It might give you a 2-minute blurb on a cool topic. But yeah, there is a paid version that's about $10 a month, but it's the best $10 a month that I spend.
Lovely. All right. Are you available 24/7, or do you have strict personal time boundaries?
That's a good question. I do work long days. However, I think it's important to work hard, and it's also important to have your time to kind of disconnect and rest and rejuvenate. And I do have a family that I like to spend time with them. So I think there's a strong balance that you have to have there.
Yeah, very much. So at dinner time, is your phone off?
My phone, I try, and this is something Brian Johnson talks about, to have deep connections with people. You should definitely put the technology away. So it's something that I try, but it's a habit that I struggle with.
I think everybody struggles with that one.
I'm sure, yeah.
Right. What is your favorite tool used for sales?
This outreach tool is pretty cool, but I would have to say Hoopla. And Hoopla is a gamification tool that links up with your CRM. And if somebody, well, first of all, it'll show how many dials people have, who's at the top of the leaderboard with dials. If somebody books a meeting, their name will flash across the screen, and they might hit a gong and will say, hey, good job, David, for booking this individual at this company. And if a deal closes, especially being in separate offices, it might do something like a basketball goes through a net, and then it says, Adam just closed a $50,000 deal, so everybody can see exactly what's happening within the company at any given time through that tool. So I think that's really cool.
Nice. Creates a good vibe in the office.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. Last question. What one piece of advice do you have for all the founders and the VP sales out there?
Wow. I probably need to ask them for some advice. But if I was to give a little bit of advice, let's see. I would just say, constantly keep improving. Even as much as I've learned, there's always a vast body of work out there that I'm introduced to that kind of amazes me. And I'm somebody that seeks out some new information all the time. So when I say that, you don't have to consume yourself. You don't have to consume yourself with looking for new new information, but just 10 minutes a day, either listening to a podcast like this or listening to an audiobook. I do a lot of audiobooks on the train. Continue to learn new information and different ways of doing things.
Excellent. So constantly improve.
Yeah.
Eric, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Adam. This has been great.